Okay, let's get into this. Our whole journey through life, dealing with the ups and the downs, it really does seem to start somewhere pretty basic. How we think.
It absolutely does. The power of our thoughts. It's not just some abstract concept. It's really the foundation, isn't it? The foundation for success, for handling setbacks, for just finding fulfillment.
Right. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've been looking at some really compelling material that digs right into this idea how thinking is where growth, where achievement truly kicks off.
Yeah.
So our mission here in this deep dive is basically to pull out the key insights from this perspective. We want to understand that core difference, right? Believing your abilities are just fixed versus believing they can actually grow.
And help you listening get a quick handle on what really matters here.
Exactly.
And what's really interesting in this material is how clearly it lays out this difference. A lot of it draws on the work of Carol Dweck, the researcher. She spent years, literally years, studying how our beliefs about ourselves shape pretty much everything.
Her work really defined these two mindsets, didn't it? So first, there's the fixed mindset. That's the belief that your intelligence, your talents, your basic skills, they're innate, set in stone. You get what you get, and that's kind of your limit.
Right, like you're sort of operating within these fixed boundaries. What you have now is what you've got, full stop.
But then the contrast is the growth mindset.
Yes.
This is that really powerful idea that you can get better continuously, that abilities, knowledge, skills, they aren't fixed. They can be developed with effort, with dedication, learning from experience, practice.
All of that. And Dweck's research, which this material highlights, says she knows it's not just, a nice idea. It has real impact.
How so?
Well, across studies, kids, students, people in the workplace, really anyone, the simple belief that you can learn, that mistakes aren't the end of the world, that you can figure out challenges, that belief itself acts like an engine.
An engine. Driving what?
Driving mental strength, resilience, and often, pretty extraordinary achievements. Believing you can makes it more likely that you will.
Okay, so if that belief is so critical, what does it actually look like in practice? Like when life throws you a curveball, how does a growth mindset person react differently?
Well, one of the biggest shifts, and the material really emphasizes this, is how you view challenges. It completely flips the script.
Flips the script how? You mean you don't avoid them?
Exactly. Instead of seeing challenges as, scary things to run from, you start seeing them. Well, the material calls them hidden gifts.
Hidden gifts. Okay, that's a cool phrase. Why gifts?
Because think about it, where does the real learning actually happen? It's almost never when things are easy and comfortable, right?
True. Usually when you're stretched.
Right. It's when you're tackling something new, making a difficult call, maybe even dealing with a failure. Those uncomfortable moments, that's where the growth is sparked.
So stepping out of your comfort zone, that's the key trigger for change.
Absolutely. The material uses this great image. It says something like, success's sunshine is often hidden in the shadow of fear and failure.
Wow.
Every single challenge you face, even the ones where you stumble, it's building your mental muscle. That whole cycle, trying, maybe falling short, getting backed up, trying again, it's not just frustrating, it's forging something new inside you.
Like resilience.
Resilience, perseverance, firmness. The material uses that word, firmness. It's a kind of inner strength born from effort.
Okay, perseverance. That makes a lot of sense. But, when you're facing challenges, trying new stuff, mistakes are going to happen. They're inevitable. How does this mindset deal with that?
Mistakes. Yeah, the material has a really refreshing take on them. It doesn't frame them as proof you're no good. Instead, they're described as your most honest teachers.
Honest teachers. Or mirrors, you said earlier.
Yeah, or mirrors. They show you exactly where you went off track, what could be improved, how you could maybe make a smarter choice next time.
Yeah.
It's direct feedback.
But most of us, we're kind of wired to hate mistakes, right? We fear the criticism, the feeling of failure.
Totally. That fear is powerful. But someone operating with a growth mindset, they see it differently. They understand that inside every single mistake, there's a little spark, a spark of potential improvement.
So it's not just an idea. They actually lean into the mistake.
They do. They're not afraid to pull it apart, analyze what happened. And this is crucial. They actually welcome feedback. All kinds.
Even the negative stuff?
Especially the negative stuff sometimes. The material points out that negative feedback, along with positive, is seen as really valuable guidance. It's not taken as a personal attack, but as information, data for growth.
It sounds like the goal isn't perfection then, is it?
Definitely not. That's more of a fixed mindset trap, trying to be perfect out of the gate. The growth mindset approach is more about appreciating the effort, embracing the process.
The beauty of the effort, yeah.
Exactly. Knowing that if you keep learning, keep making those small adjustments, you will eventually get closer to your goal. It might not be a straight line, but you're moving forward.
Okay, look, this all sounds incredibly positive, but how do you actually live like this? It can't just be a switch you flip in your head, right?
Oh, absolutely not. The material is very clear on this. It's not a one-off decision. It's framed as a continuous practice.
A practice, like something you do every day.
Every single day. It shows up in your habits, your automatic thoughts, just your general outlook on things.
So where does that daily practice start? What's the first step?
Well, maybe surprisingly, it often starts with your self-talk. You know, that internal monologue.
How you talk to yourself.
Yeah, that's often the first, most obvious sign of your mindset. Think about when you have a setback. What does that little voice inside say? Is it beating you up? You idiot, you messed up again. Or is it more like, okay, that didn't work out. What did I learn? How can I do better next time?
So shifting that internal conversation towards something more constructive, empowering.
Precisely. That positive, empowering self-talk is like the foundation. The material even uses an analogy like building muscle. You need daily practice.
Right, you have to train it.
You have to train it. Catch those negative thoughts. Ask yourself, okay, is this thought actually helping me right now, or is it just stopping me? And then consciously try to reframe it. Make it encouraging.
It takes real awareness and discipline, I imagine.
It does. It really does.
What else is part of this daily cultivation?
Another really big piece is shifting focus. Moving away from just obsessing over the end goal.
The finish line.
Yeah, and instead really embracing the process of getting there, the journey itself.
Right, the journey, not just the destination idea.
Exactly. Big achievements, they don't happen overnight. They're built on lots of small, consistent steps. And the growth mindset encourages actually celebrating those small wins along the way.
Why is celebrating the small steps important?
Because it builds momentum, it builds confidence, it keeps you motivated. But it does require, as the material points out, integrity, sticking with it, and patience. Real patience.
And if you accept that growth is this ongoing process, does that help with the fear of failure we talked about?
Huge difference. If failure is just seen as part of the learning curve, data point, it loses a lot of its scary power. It doesn't paralyze you. Difficulties become less like walls and more like puzzles to figure out, things that actually make you stronger.
Interesting. Now, the material also mentions something about who you hang out with, your company.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Choosing your company. You know that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Well, there's truth to that. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, who criticize everything, who have really limited views, it's hard not to get pulled down by that.
So part of the practice is actively choosing who you associate with.
Critically important. The material really pushes this. Seek out companions, mentors, friends who are genuinely excited about learning, people who offer fresh perspectives, who actually cheer on your progress.
They act like mirrors, reflecting potential.
Exactly. Reflecting potential, not limitations. And you see this in how growth-minded people interact. They tend to cooperate more than compete. They're curious, they communicate openly. They don't see someone else succeeding as somehow diminishing them.
So pulling these threads together, it sounds like cultivating this mindset isn't one big action, but lots of small daily choices.
That's exactly how the material frames it, like a daily experiment. It's not automatic. It's built decision by decision. When you make a mistake, do you hide it or do you look at it? When you get feedback, do you shut down or do you listen? When a new opportunity comes up, do you step back in fear or do you lean in?
And those small choices add up, reflecting your overall mindset.
Completely. The material suggests asking yourself regularly, maybe at the end of the day, did I learn something new today? Did I tackle a challenge I might have avoided? Did I give myself, or maybe someone else, a chance to improve? The answers kind of show you where you're operating from.
Yeah, that makes sense. And these ideas seem especially relevant when things get really difficult. Did the material talk about how mindset affects handling, like a real crisis?
Yes, it's a really critical point. Because when you face genuine hardship, that's often when the difference between the mindsets becomes incredibly clear. Some people seem to just break under pressure.
While others bend.
Exactly. They bend, they adapt, and somehow they bounce back, often even stronger. That's the mindset difference in action.
Because the growth mindset sees the difficulty differently, not as a final stop.
Right. The material uses this powerful image. Difficulties aren't a wall you crash into. They're more like a platform you can jump from.
A platform. I like that reframe.
It's powerful, isn't it? And it stems from this core understanding that change, instability, uncertainty, these aren't things to just endure or fear. They're actually the real teachers.
The real teachers.
Yeah. Figuring out how to navigate through a challenge instead of just being crushed by it, that's what builds mental flexibility. And that flexibility is gold. It lets you adapt, learn, and keep growing no matter what the circumstances throw at you.
And that flexibility, that adaptability, it works alongside perseverance, right? Which you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, hand in hand. Perseverance is highlighted as just a star quality. It's that habit, that muscle of repeated effort. Falling down, getting up, but getting up a little wiser each time. The material really drives home that extraordinary results rarely come from avoiding defeat altogether. They come from seeing defeat as temporary. A setback, yes, but not the final word, not the ultimate truth about you.
Okay, so it helps with resilience, getting through tough times. Does thinking this way also, I don't know, open up new possibilities, like creativity?
Fundamentally, yes. A growth mindset is like fuel for creativity. It gives you the power to look at problems, situations, ideas from completely fresh angles.
How does it actually fuel creativity? What's the connection?
It starts with that core belief, I can learn. If you believe that, then every single experience, even the confusing or difficult ones, becomes a potential source of new knowledge or a new skill.
So it makes you more open.
Exactly. That thinking process creates fertile ground. And the material suggests creativity really blossoms when fear is low and curiosity is high.
And the growth mindset tackles the fear part.
Yes. It lowers the fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of failing, fear of what other people might think or say. When that fear recedes, it frees you up to experiment, to try unconventional things, to think outside the usual boxes.
So instead of asking, can I do this? You start asking, okay, how can I do this? That how question, that's the key that unlocks the door to creativity. The material points out, the people who really break barriers in any field, they first had to break their own mental barriers. That's powerful. So this mindset, it's not just about chasing conventional success then, like getting the promotion, making more money.
No, not solely. I mean, it often leads to those external markers, sure. But the material suggests the deeper, more meaningful outcome of embracing a growth mindset is actually fulfillment.
Fulfillment. Okay, how does that work? How does it lead to fulfillment?
Well, true success, viewed through this lens, isn't just measured by what you achieve on the outside. It's measured by the inner change.
Yeah.
By your personal growth, by the ongoing journey of learning and becoming.
So the success is the becoming.
In a big way, yes. A person with a growth mindset understands that just getting a little bit better each day, learning something new, overcoming a small hurdle, that is real, meaningful success in itself.
It sounds much less focused on comparing yourself to others.
Much less. It really shifts away from constant comparison and that kind of cutthroat competition. The focus is more on progressing through cooperation, through open conversation, and really importantly, through honest self-reflection.
And this way of thinking, does it help with just managing life? Emotions.
Definitely. It helps create better balance. It gives you tools to understand and guide your emotions more positively. Because when you start to understand yourself better...
You understand others better, too.
Exactly. And when you focus on improving yourself, that positive change inevitably ripples outwards. It improves your relationships, how you approach your work, even how you engage with your community.
Which brings us nicely to sort of the final area this material really highlighted, the impact this mindset has on our relationships. How it fosters sensitivity, mutual growth.
Yeah, it's not just an internal thing for you alone. It absolutely shapes how you connect with other people. If you genuinely believe that everyone, not just you, but everyone has the capacity to learn, to change, to improve.
It changes how you treat them.
Fundamentally, you're much more likely to choose understanding over just jumping to criticism. To choose sensitivity over bitterness or writing someone off, to choose cooperation instead of just neglect or dismissal.
So you're less likely to feel threatened if someone else does well.
Not at all threatened. That's a key point.
No.
People with this mindset generally don't get bogged down in envying other people's success. Instead, they tend to find inspiration in it.
Inspiration.
We're like, wow, look what they achieved. What can I learn from that? They're often more willing to help others, to teach, to share what they know. And crucially, they remain open to learning from others, regardless of status or background.
It sounds like it creates much stronger, more authentic connections.
It really does. It tends to fill relationships with more depth, more trust, more honesty. And imagine when this way of thinking spreads, right? Within a family, a group of friends, a workplace, even a whole society.
Everyone starts supporting each other's growth.
Exactly. You create this amazing culture of learning where everyone feels safe to try, to stumble, and to help each other get back up and move forward.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this all together,
Yeah.
what we've really unpacked today is how powerful our thinking is, particularly adopting this growth mindset. It's not just a nice idea, it sounds absolutely foundational.
It really is. And it's a practice, right? Not a destination. It requires that continuous daily attention. But the payoff is huge because it touches literally every part of life.
How you face challenges,
How do you learn from mistakes?
your daily habits,
How you respond in a crisis?
how you unlock creativity,
How you even define success for yourself?
and ultimately how you build deeper, more meaningful connections with others.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
So this isn't just theory to understand intellectually.
Yeah.
It's really a way of being that you practice.
Exactly. And the material strongly suggests that this practice is the key, not just for achieving things, but for building a life that feels resilient, fulfilling, and just deep.
And there's a final thought the material leaves us with, right?
Yeah.
Something to really chew on.
Yeah, it's quite profound, actually. It frames this whole exploration not as reaching some kind of endpoint of understanding, but more as the promise of a new beginning.
A new beginning.
Yeah.
Based on that core idea.
Yeah.
As you think, so you become.
Precisely. If you consciously choose day after day to really believe and act on the thought, okay, I can learn from this, I can change, I can move forward, well, this perspective tells us, quite confidently,
You can reach any height.
you really can reach any height you aspire to. The potential unlocks when the mindset shifts.
So the call to action is live this practice
Yeah.
every day, every moment, every single decision.
That's the journey.